determining if a release is needed is often a complex issue. Limiting our comments to a situation where a scene takes place outdoor, such determination should consider the situation with respect to trademarks, copyright, right of publicity, right of privacy, and defamation. Trademarks. A frequent question from producers is whether a release is necessary when filming a scene in which a character drinks from a bottle displaying a visible company logo. In general, this scenario does not typically result in liability, as the logo is not being used as a trademark to market a product. However, if the logo is used to suggest that the beer company is a sponsor or affiliated with the production, a release would be required. In a trademark infringement claim, a plaintiff must show that it not only has a valid, protectable trademark, but that the infringer's use of the mark is likely to confuse consumers as to the origin of the product or service. Generally, incidental display of trademarks doesn't violate trademark rights. However, depicting a character suffering harm after using a branded product could be considered product disparagement, similar to defamation, and lead to separate liability beyond trademark infringement. Copyright artwork may be in the background. Reproducing artwork may constitute copyright infringement. However, if the image appears only briefly in the background, it could fall under fair use. When evaluating whether a use qualifies as fair use, courts consider 4 factors. 1. The purpose and character of the use. 2. The nature of the copyrighted work. 3. The amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the entire copyrighted work. And 4. The potential impact on the market for or value of the copyrighted work. Fair use is a defense, with no uniform interpretation. Be careful. Right of publicity. The right of publicity lets individuals control how their name and likeness are used, but laws differ by state. In New York, a 2020 law introduced a post-mortem publicity right lasting 40 years, restricting unauthorized digital replicas of deceased performers. The law also prohibits the use of a deceased performer's digital replica in a scripted audiovisual work as a fictional character or for the live performance of a musical work, unless it was authorized by the person or their heirs. This law applies only to those who lived in New York at death. California prohibits the unauthorized use of the name, voice, signature, photograph, or likeness on or in products, merchandise, or goods for those who are living, and grants similar rights for 70 years after death and bans unauthorized use of a person's identity on products for living individuals. An exception exists for newsworthy uses, allowing critical coverage without violating publicity rights. Rights of privacy. The United States Supreme Court has interpreted the Constitution and the Bill of Rights as containing an implicit right to privacy. This right has been described as the ability to live without unwarranted public attention or interference. Unlike defamation, invasion of privacy does not require an injury to one's reputation. In this case, truth is not defense. Citing information that is part of the public record does not constitute grounds for an invasion of privacy claim, as such information is already publicly accessible. Both express and implied consent serve as valid defenses. Individuals who voluntarily disclose private information to others are generally precluded from seeking relief for invasion of privacy. When an individual has a reasonable expectation of privacy, photographing them may constitute a violation of their rights. But appearing in public view generally precludes a claim to privacy infringement, as the individual has voluntarily presented themselves in a public setting. The exterior of a building and the adjacent land are generally permitted to be filmed or photographed if they are visible from a location accessible to the public. However, some places like California has the so-called anti-paparazzi law, which restricts the filming, photographing, or recording of private property, even from public spaces such as streets or sidewalks, when it is only achievable through technologically advanced equipment and the subject has a reasonable expectation of privacy. Defamation refers to communications that negatively affects an individual's reputation within a community or discourages others from associating or engaging with them. Individuals who experience defamation may face both reputational consequences and potential economic impacts, such as loss of employment opportunities or diminished earning capacity. When the defamed party is a public figure or public official, they are required to satisfy a higher evidentiary threshold by demonstrating that the alleged defamer acted with actual malice. In other words, the individual either knew the statement was false or exhibited reckless disregard for its veracity. A private individual may only be required to establish negligence to obtain relief. When the right to protect one's reputation conflicts with policies that prioritize the expression of truth, recovery for reputational harm may be denied. Accordingly, if a statement damages an individual's reputation, but is proven true, the speaker is afforded absolute privilege. This protection is not negated by bad faith or intent to cause harm. Thus, even intentionally defamatory statements are privileged so long as they are truthful, reflecting the legal principle that the pursuit of truth is of higher societal value than individual reputation. However, in some circumstances, the responsibility to prove the veracity of the statement rests with the party making it.